D. Mace Finnegan and Donick 1025 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, Nick Frazier here with you. Willie Donick will be with us shortly. We were treated to an excellent start to March Madness last night, Derek Mason. What you want to see in March Madness? 2 16 seeds, Alabama State, St. Francis, battling it out for the chance to be slaughtered by Auburn tomorrow. But it didn't matter. Alabama State, with the Grant Hill-esque touchdown pass from underneath one basket, travels 3/4 of the way across the court, layup with, a second left on the clock?
Yes.
Alabama State wins 70-68. They advance again to face Auburn in the first round of the NCAA tournament. I'm looking for the line on that game. I can't imagine it's going to be close. The line has been set at Auburn minus 32.5. So congratulations, Alabama State. It was a great game.
Yeah, it was.
And that's what you want to see in March Madness. 2 schools that most of us have never heard of, battling it out. The night is for them. There's only one other game on the schedule. So it's easy to get sucked into things like that. I wasn't watching the entire game, but I was seeing highlights of the end. So I made sure to tune in. And that's what you want to see at this time of the year. These games mean something to these kids, even if, again, it's just 2 16 seeds facing off with each other to be inevitably blown out by Auburn. It still means something to them.
Yeah, and that's what, more than likely everybody is thinking on campus. Now, the players, they're still going to have that optimism about themselves that they can go out there and compete. But competing and winning are 2 different things. You can compete all you want to, and they will compete, I'm sure. But actually winning a game is a different story. But watching that game last night versus St. Francis and Alabama State, my nephew is a student at Alabama State, and he's in town for the week because they're on spring break. So we were watching the game yesterday and on 2 separate TVs because he was upstairs watching it and I guess playing the game too, and I was downstairs watching it. But I could hear him yelling and screaming. And it was competition at its finest, I believe, because these are the stories that you hear about and that you want to see during March Madness. A 16 seed in a play-in, having the type of game that they had. It was an evenly contested game throughout the whole night, and because of a full court Hail Mary, then fumbling of the basketball. Because that happened, it allowed Alabama State to make the last second basket and head to, what is it? Is it Lexington? Where are they headed? Lexington to have a battle of the state of Alabama. That's basically what it is.
I suppose that's true. But this time of year, it's about those stories that you otherwise would have never heard of. Now, if you are a Kentucky fan, you may want to close your ears for a moment because I think of St. Peter's from 3 years ago.
Yes.
And they had Doug Edert, I believe his name is, the little white dude with the mustache. Everybody loved St. Peter's in 2022, other than Kentucky, of course, which was upset in a 2-15 matchup. But remember, was it Loyola Chicago several years ago with Sister Jean? That whole thing. By the way, Sister Jean, I believe, is still alive. She is 105 years old.
She's about to participate in another. Are they in the tournament this year?
Loyola Chicago?
Yeah.
No,
they're not in it. But look at what Oakland was able to do last year.
Also against Kentucky.
We're just
picking on Kentucky fans right
this
now.
This is a pick on Kentucky day. Oakland, what they were able to do last year, and I forget the guy's name, but he was like a fifth or sixth year guy, and he was raining threes.
That scrawny kid, yeah,
he was raining threes from the raps, from on top of the arena, and you haven't heard about him since. After that game, you haven't heard about him at all.
There are these names, of players that have these moments in NCAA tournament history that you remember their names. Like here's one that I remember. Ali Faroukmanesh. Ali Faroukmanesh played for Northern Iowa in 2010. He hit a crucial three-pointer to help Northern Iowa upset Kansas in the second round. That was his one shining moment. But I still can think of the name Ali Faroukmanesh 15 years later, despite the fact that he played for Northern Iowa and had one game that meant something to the nation. So that's what these moments are all about. And
his name was Jack Gorky, the pride of the Golden Grizzlies of Oakland.
Last season.
Gorky, I think that's his how you pronounce it. A go hike.
Golky.
Golky?
Yeah, Golky.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So guys like that only comes up, their name only come up during the tournament. And then after the tournament, you never hear from them again.
And that Oakland guy last year, it was kind of crazy with the timing because that's when NIL was starting to really catch feet, and everybody was coming after him like, hey, you want to sponsor this, sponsor that. He was doing interviews left and right. And look at us now.
Right. I mean, he made a name for himself by having a couple of fabulous games.
Exactly.
Andrew from Dover on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says, are you feeling salty this morning, Adam? Did you like that North Carolina blowout last night? The answer, of course, is no, I did not. North Carolina defeated San Diego State 95-68 in the other first four matchup. Carolina advances to take on Ole Miss on Thursday. Of course, I didn't like it, but I will refer you to the column that our very own Joe Rexroad wrote this morning on The Athletic with the headline, no, North Carolina shouldn't have been in the NCAA tournament, but this wasn't a felony. So good for Carolina, I guess. We'll see what happens the rest of the way. Of course, the main event is tonight as far as I'm concerned. In the other first four matchup, my beloved American University Eagles will take on Mount St. Mary's tonight with a chance to play Duke on Friday, which would lead to a very awkward basketball game for me. But I will be rooting hard for my beloved Eagles tonight in the 16 versus 16 play-in game. The other game, Xavier in Texas, in an 11 versus 11 matchup. But keep in mind, if you love yourself some college basketball, you can come play hooky with us at 102.5, 106.3 The Game tomorrow and Friday at Boomba's Pizza and Watch Bar from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. We will be at the Murfreesboro location tomorrow and the Spring Hill location on Friday. Come enjoy award-winning pizza, handcrafted beverages, win prizes, watch the basketball games with us. So that is tomorrow in Murfreesboro, Friday in Spring Hill. Derek, yesterday we had Tim Hasselbeck on our program, as we do every Tuesday. And I thought we had an incredibly enlightening conversation with Tim Hasselbeck. I learned so much talking to Tim every week, but I thought some of the points he made yesterday were quite illuminating. Talking about how we view draft prospects, how we compare them to other players. And of course, that's top of mind here because of what the Titans have in their possession, the number one overall pick in the NFL draft next month. But here is a snippet of what Tim Hasselbeck had to say yesterday. This is him discussing Shedeur Sanders and his comparison.
I'm going to bring this to Shedeur Sanders. I think that he's a really good quarterback. I think he's been coached well to play the position. I think he knows how to play the position. I think he has things about him that translate to success long-term at the position in the NFL, okay? and I'm going to say this, and like people are going to hear it initially as an insult, and let me explain it. I think his upside is Andy Dalton. That's what I think Shedeur Sanders is because of what he is physically. Now, listen, Andy Dalton's thrown over 250 touchdown passes in the NFL. Like, he's been a wild success. But no one ever thought Andy Dalton was a top 5 pick. So, like, I don't know if I'm making that distinction clear enough. Like, that to me is the difference. It's no different than when Teddy Bridgewater came out and people thought I was being critical of Teddy Bridgewater when I said, look, I think his ceiling is Alex Smith. And, like, Teddy Bridgewater didn't have Alex Smith's career, you know? And so I think when we're talking about that top 15, and I said the same thing to you guys about Mac Jones when he came out, like, when the guy has athletic deficiencies, when you are going to play a sport that's got some of the most, you know, freakish athletes on the planet playing it, I do think if you're going to be talking about the rarefied air of the first 15 pick, I do think it matters. And so it's a long way for me to say, like, I do think people are going to feel like they've got a forced hand on Shedeur Sanders.
So that was Tim Hasselbeck talking about Shedeur Sanders. We, of course, have spent a lot of time talking about Cam Ward and whether he is deserving of being the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. But Tim's point there, I agree with, in the sense that we often have these lofty expectations for draft prospects. And if the draft prospects are not compared to the top tier players at their position in any sport, for example, the Predators, who lost again last night,
yes,
could be in position to have the number 1 overall pick in the NHL draft. And you can look at some of the top prospects who could be available to the Predators with the number 1 pick in the NHL draft. But there are a lot of people out there who will say, well, if this guy is not Connor McDavid, if this guy is not Austin Matthews, if this guy is not Nathan McKinnon, then why draft him? And I think that's what's happening with the Titans. Cam Ward, by most accounts, does not compare as well to the top quarterback prospects in the draft last year. Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Caleb Williams. You look at his place on big boards, he's maybe 10, 11, 12, 13, and you want to say, well, why would the Titans use the number 1 pick on someone who is the 13th best prospect in the draft? I do think that we as sports fans, generally, we tend to exaggerate. We are prone to hyperbole. And I do think it's a dangerous game, Derek, when the Titans are in the position that they're in, and everybody hopes that Cam Ward is the next Patrick Mahomes. But the likelihood of that is so small. And I think that people are setting themselves up for disappointment if they think that way.
Yeah, they are. And it's baffling because I tend to believe that, you know, the Titans fan base is a well-educated fan base when it comes to the Tennessee Titans and football. And they understand, you know, how teams go from worst to first, and that every quarterback in the NFL isn't Patrick Mahomes. And it would be nice to have that guy, but that's just not the landscape of sports. So I would tend to believe that the fan base is educated enough to understand. But then you hear things like, well, don't draft Ward because he's not he's not a franchise quarterback, or he's not Patrick Mahomes. You can't draft the number 1 unless he's Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes didn't get drafted number 1. The guy that got drafted number 1 years later, he's not even close to Patrick Mahomes. And I'm talking about Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence was drafted number 1 in that year's draft. I forgot what year that was. 2020, 2021.
And it was
might have been 19.
By most accounts, it was a slam dunk,
yes,
right? That Trevor Lawrence was going to be the number 1 overall pick. The same way it was a slam dunk,
Joe Burrow,
to cross sports metaphors here. It was a slam dunk that Joe Burrow was going to be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. And Joe Burrow has lived up to that. Trevor Lawrence has not yet lived up to that. So even in situations where, I mean, let's use last year for an example. I think everybody knew early on that Caleb Williams was going to be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. There was very little suspense about what the Bears were going to do with the number 1 pick in the draft. So even in situations where it's a virtual lock that a certain player is going to go number 1 overall, that doesn't mean that that player is going to live up to that. So we see it from both angles.
Yeah, we do. So when Titans fans start to comment or make their opinions known about drafting Cam Ward or why you shouldn't draft Cam Ward because he's not Patrick Mahomes, like Tim said, I get that number 1 pick in the draft, the guy that you're drafting before you draft anybody else. There's 300 and some guys in the NFL draft, and out of those 300, you are the first guy that is going to be drafted. So there's a sense of saviorism, if that's even a word, in that particular pick, because you figure I'm drafting him number 1. He's supposed to save my franchise. But that doesn't all that more likely will not happen. The more likely thing to happen is he's a part of a system that you're putting together that will ultimately win a championship. Yes, you have some of those outliers that get drafted number 1 and end up being all that they said they were going to be. But more times than not, when you draft a guy number 1, he is only a part of a team that you're building. He's not necessarily going to be the guy. Again, there are some situations that he is the guy, but more times than not, he just become one of the guys that is going to be a part of what you're trying to put together. So when you look at this number 1 pick, like Tim said, Adam, if you get Andy Dalton play, you've won.
He was a starter in this league for more than a decade.
Exactly. And if you look at the numbers and the teams that he led to the playoff, because let's make no mistake, Cincinnati Bengals hadn't always been a good team, okay? They haven't. They haven't always had Chase and Higgins and those guys, okay? Now, they had Chad and Houshmandzadeh, who was damn good.
A.J. Green.
Yeah, A.J. Green. So when Andy Dalton came, A.J. Green was his primary target.
I believe they were drafted the same year.
Yeah, he was this guy. The Cincinnati Bengals weren't known to be a juggernaut in a sense of, them dominating on defense and offense. Okay. I can tell you, we played against them. Okay. We didn't consider them a team that, oh my goodness, we got to beat them to get to the playoffs. Now, some seasons were different than others, but we knew that Andy Dalton was a good quarterback. So when you were scouting for him, you were scouting for him not to beat you, finding ways that he wouldn't beat you. If the Titans could bring in someone, and I understand, again, people, I understand, Titans fans, that you want Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying that I don't want Patrick Mahomes either, because I do. But if they draft Cam Moore, Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, whoever, and he turns out to be Andy Dalton, you've won. Because now, hopefully, you've built the team around that, and you've won a lot of football games. Tannehill wasn't a draft pick, but he was the right guy for the job. He did exactly what the team wanted him to do. They just didn't understand that they needed to add more around him. And when they started to add more around him, those veteran guys that were there for him started to get hurt. Then the offensive line started to get worse. So it all didn't mesh together. If you can get 10 years plus of Andy Dalton's play, and you surround him with good players to great players, you will get the same results that the Philadelphia Eagles have gotten not once, but twice. And will you be happy with that, fans? I think I would be. So again,
what was that? 2 trips to the Super Bowl in 3 years?
Yeah, well, no, they beat New England, Well, they won 2 Super Bowls, but 2 trips in 3 years, but they won a Super Bowl
Right.
with
With Jalen Hurts.
with Jalen Hurts.
Is it 2 and 3 years with Jalen Hurts is
Yes,
what I'm
but
asking.
then they won a Super Bowl with
Yes.
the backup quarterback.
With Foles.
Yeah, Foles.
Nick Foles.
So it can be done. Philadelphia shows you it can be done. Okay, so you don't, as much as we want that Patrick Mahomes, that Joe Burrow, that Lamar Jackson, that Josh Allen, there's only so few guys that are in that stratosphere, and that's for a reason. Even though we may want those guys, just like window shopping, I may want that $400,000 Porsche, but I'm not going out and get it. Okay, I'm gonna deal with what I got here, and I'm gonna make it work. Find you a good quarterback, a quarterback that can be reliable, that can lead your team, and then surround that quarterback with other good players, and you will get exactly what the Philadelphia Eagles got: a Super Bowl.
615-737-1025. Your thoughts on the quarterback situation with the Tennessee Titans. We will continue to talk about this, of course, all the way through the NFL draft next month. 615-737-1025. Do you want to win tickets to a Preds game? Then be listening to Robbie and Rexroad tomorrow morning for Preds Pick to Click. All you have to do is guess a Preds goal scorer, and if they put the puck in the back of the net, you win, which is kind of hard to do lately since they've scored 2 goals in 3 games. But be listening tomorrow morning for the cue to call on Robbie and Rexroad.
Happy Wednesday. Is it? Is it Wednesday? Yeah, it is Wednesday. I'm sitting here and I'm trying to fix my computer because it cut off on me. There we go. Now I'm back. Happy Tuesday, everyone. This is Derek Mason, and I know you've heard me talk to you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. And I've said this too. Now that the weather is breaking and we can all take off those sweaters and those sweatpants, we also realize that in the process, we've gained a couple of pounds. So, this is not the first time that we're going to look to lose some extra weight that we put on during the wintertime. And the best way you can do it is to go see my friends over at Cool Springs MD, because Dr. Lodge and his staff understands the frustration of that cycle, putting on the weight, taking it off. And that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
You just put out your third mock draft, I do believe, 3.0. And it seems like you and everybody else that's mock drafting have the first four the exact same. Is that because you're all getting information? You're all seeing the board the same way? Why do you think the front or the beginning of this draft is kind of settled in seemingly?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there is, broad consensus right now. I think probably more of a coincidence that we end up having them where we have them at this point in time. So I just Cam Ward going number one is something when you're talking to people around the league that just has become more of the expectation. I do feel good about that. Whether that's Tennessee or whether that's 2 or 3 trying to move up to that first spot, but that's the one that I feel the most confident. After that, I still think it's pretty up in the air.
That was NFL Network draft guru Daniel Jeremiah on the Pat McAfee Show. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, of course. The Donick of our group, Willie Donick, will be along momentarily. But, Derek, I have a question for you. Mm-hmm. Do you like Diet Coke?
No, I'm not a big Diet Coke guy.
Frazier?
From time to time, it's good with a good pizza. Maybe like a tavern-style pizza or a Sicilian-style pizza. I'm cool with that.
I like a Diet Coke. I want to maintain my girlish figure, not enough, not too much sugar, all of those things. Need to get that caffeine. So we're talking about comparisons when it comes to quarterbacks. And Nate Tice at Yahoo Sports wrote a long analysis of Cam Ward. The headline, Cam Ward is much more than the top quarterback of a weak class, and here's why. And I recommend the story. It is a really good look at Cam Ward as a player with video clips to prove Nate Tice's points. It's a long read, so make sure you have some time to devote to it if you want to take the time to read it. But I saw a comparison in this story. We're talking about lofty comparisons. I mentioned Diet Coke. Nate Tice in this article, he writes, quote, "This isn't just because I think Ward plays like a Diet Coke version of Steve McNair, and that makes it easy for me to envision Ward in that uniform. It's that the Titans, or whoever makes the number 1 pick, should be absolutely thrilled in getting Ward because he has that type of needle-moving talent. He doesn't have the elite traits we might see from other top-end prospects, but he checks a lot of boxes with how he plays the position, and there should be even more to tap into." Nate Tice also writes, "I think Ward has the play style of a type of quarterback that a team wins a game because of, with a higher floor than he's getting credit for because of his anticipation, understanding of timing, creation, ball placement, and ability to win on underneath throws and in the intermediate areas. Again, he still has plenty to continue to clean up like every young athlete ever, and he will likely get punished early in his career as he adapts his style to NFL speed and feels the limitations of his arm strength and speed. And the Titans should be doing their due diligence and listening to every offer available, but the Titans should and likely will stand pat and take Ward at the top of the draft." So, of course, I am sitting next to someone who played with Steve McNair. And when you use that name around here, you need to be careful because of how beloved Steve McNair was to the Tennessee Titans and the Tennessee Titans fan base. So Nate Tice compares Cam Ward to a quote-unquote Diet Coke version of Steve McNair. So let me ask Derek Mason, who, again, played with Steve McNair, do you see Steve McNair traits in Cam Ward?
Wide receiver translator.
Oh, man. Do I see traits of Steve McNair? Steve was a rare breed. In a sense, there wasn't quarterbacks out there like him. There were some that were mobile, but I think the closest thing to Steve probably was Steve Young, sort of along that era. Listen, I know you had Michael Vick playing, but Michael Vick wasn't Steve McNair. He was a totally different quarterback than Steve McNair. Randall Cunningham was playing toward the latter part of Steve's beginning of his career. Even with his ability to scramble and, you know, be Houdini, and I'm talking about Randall Cunningham, he still wasn't Steve McNair. Steve McNair was a different type of quarterback in that sense, because not only was he mobile, but he ran with a purpose. Not only did he run with a purpose, he was hard to bring down. He was more Cam Newton-ish than anything else, because Cam not only did Cam run with purpose, he was hard to bring down. He was like a freight train trying to bring him down. And hence both of them win an MVP, you know, in their respective years. So I would put Cam Newton. I would have said he was more closer to Steve McNair than I think Cam Ward is. Cam Ward is a version of what Lamar Jackson is, what Jalen Hurts is, what Josh Allen is, what some of these other quarterbacks, Bo Nix, has the potential to be. A really good quarterback, a really good athlete that can move around in the pocket, that can buy you time. But even when you don't have to move around in the pocket, he still can deliver the ball down the field. That's more so Cam Ward. Cam Ward is, other than his race, Cam Ward isn't Steve McNair. I know people can slap a Titans jersey on him and say, "Oh, look, that is Steve McNair." No, if you really truly watch Steve McNair, these are two different type of players. There were two different type of players in college, and I'm sure they're going to be two different type of players in the NFL. I would put Cam Ward closer to, and I was listening to Jared's show yesterday, and I heard who was he talking to?
Was it Trevor Maddich?
Yeah, I heard Trevor Maddich. And Trevor said, and I respect, Trevor and I don't always, agree, but I respect what Trevor says, because he's played this game and sort of watched over this game for a long time. He said he's more Baker Mayfield than anything. And I would tend to agree. He's more Baker Mayfield than he is Steve McNair, So it's nice to compare Ward, who potentially can be the number one pick, to the team that you love so much here in Nashville. That's great to compare the two, because he more than likely will be the number one pick, but he is not Steve McNair. Now, do we choose? Now, I'm sure he would love to emulate some of the things Steve did, in his career, but by no means is he Steve McNair, or you should compare him to Steve McNair.
So the quarterback that we have seen post Steve McNair that reminds you most of Steve McNair is Cam Newton?
It's more so Cam Newton, and not because of the height, because Cam was able to do the things that Cam had a strong arm. Steve had a strong arm. Cam could run through you, run over you, or run around you. Steve McNair could do the same thing. Tough in the pocket. Steve McNair was one of those guys that were tough in the pocket, knew how to play the game the right way. Now, the only thing Cam did that Steve never was a part of was bringing attention toward himself. That is the only thing. Steve would run away from the attention on the field rather than, take it head on and accept it. Cam Ward more so was the other type, and there was nothing wrong with it, but he was more so in your face, the alpha sort of guy behind the scenes and in front of the camera.
Yeah, Cam Newton, whenever you see him on First Take now, I've made this comparison multiple times, looks like he's in an off-Broadway production of Alice in Wonderland, playing the Mad Hatter. He's got the big top hat and
with the feather in it sometimes.
Yeah, and the loud shirts. And hey, he can pull it off. So more power to him. But 615-737-1025. Your thoughts on Cam Ward being compared to a Diet Coke version of Steve McNair by Nate Tice of Yahoo Sports. By the way, Wes from Hermitage texts in and wants to let me know that Diet Coke is actually worse for you than regular Coke. I guess because of the sugar substitute. So I guess I need to be drinking regular Coke. I'm not a big soda person in general, but thank you for looking out for me, Wes. I don't want to be drinking the bad stuff. 615-737-1025. Predators fans, don't miss Smashville Live tonight at Brewhouse South in Franklin at 6 o'clock. See your Predators star players up close and personal. You can also get autographs and pictures. Tonight's guest will be Jonathan Marchessault. That's Jonathan Marchessault tonight, Brewhouse South and Franklin for Smashville Live.
when it comes to Cam Ward. Do you think we're likely to get a game-changing franchise quarterback? Do you think we're likely to get a bust quarterback? Or do you think we're most likely to get a Kyler Murray quarterback who's good, but is probably never going to be great and take us to the top of the league?
I don't think the middle one is where we would be, Jared. I don't think that Cam Ward will be a pretty good quarterback. I think he'll either be great or I think he will bust. And the bust potential is because of how much he plays off schedule. You know, he'll drop back in the pocket and then drift around and try to do things that he gets away with in college, but that he wouldn't get away with it in the NFL. For example, a lot of times when he has pass rushers come towards him, he'll back up instead of climbing or getting out to the side. And there are all kinds of things that he does where he throws the ball in the grasp of a pass rusher, for example, where he made big plays in college that in the NFL is just going to be a sack or just going to be a big hit. And he's not even going to have a chance to show that amazing sidearm, shortstop style passing. And so if they can coach him to be more precise with his drops, more precise with his decisions, more clean with how he throws the ball and marrying his feet with his eyes. A lot of times he'll drop back in the pocket in Miami and he'll look off to the left and then he'll look middle, then he'll look right, and his feet don't follow his eyes. And if you've got time in the pocket, you've got to have your feet follow your eyes, or else you're just not going to have the consistency of accuracy.
That was Trevor Matich on with Jared Stillman yesterday. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. By the way, D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick is proudly presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Our main man, Trey, is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Trey, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Guys, hey, how y'all doing?
Good, you?
Doing good, Trey.
Hey, I've been hearing a lot of talk about Cam Ward, and it's been mostly bad. I can't get out of my head. Last month, everybody was saying he was Tyrod Taylor. Now he's the prince of you know.
Thank you for the call, Trey. Trey kind of cut out there.
Yeah,
but I
said...
hear what Trey was saying, that how quickly things change. Not too long ago, we were all under the assumption that the Titans would trade the number 1 pick, maybe sign a veteran quarterback, and hope to find that young franchise quarterback another time. But what happens at draft time, as we've discussed, there are big risers and big fallers. So over the past number of weeks, the stock in Cam Ward has risen at a time where we thought that you don't want Cam Ward. You don't want Shedeur Sanders, especially if you're at the top of the draft. Now, you could take them later in the draft, but at the top of the draft, they're not worth it. And now we're hearing a lot about how the expectations is that the Titans are going to take Cam Ward. I remember talking to Teron Davenport right after the NFL Combine. I said, what was your biggest takeaway from your time in Indianapolis? And he said, if the Titans are holding on to the number 1 pick, it's going to be Cam Ward. And it seems like it was around that time, Derek, that the Cam Ward hype train pulled out of the station.
Listen, it happens just about every year, or I dare to say even every year, where you have a prospect, and more times than not, it's the quarterback prospect. You have a prospect that is in the draft, 1 or 2, that no one or everyone is putting down, and everyone is telling you how bad this quarterback is, and he's definitely not a first rounder, he can't do this, he can't do that. And this is all before the combine. This is just right after. A starting point could be right after college football, the regular season end, and you get into your bowl games. And, that's when the talk of this quarterback's not good, he's not going to be a first rounder, or he will be a first rounder, he will be the number 1 pick. And then a funny thing happens, the combine. And even before that, the NFL free agency starts. And then all of a sudden, the yays become no's, and the no's become yays. It happens every year, no matter the prospect, no matter if it's Caleb Williams, no matter if it's Jaden Daniels, no matter if it's Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder, all these quarterbacks. Malik Willis. At one point, Malik Willis was said to be the number 1 pick in the draft, or a top 15 pick at one point early in the draft. Early in the process. And then it went from that to ultimately where he ended up getting drafted. So no matter what the year, who the prospect is, this is what you're going to have. People talking themselves or out of guys and then turning right back around and talking themselves into guys. And here is the famous line when they do that. Famous line. Yeah, it forced me to go back and watch some more tape of them. Huh? I thought you watched a lot of tape last time when making these evaluations. But because someone may have said something or you had a little bit more time on your hands, you had to go back and watch film to make you go from saying, no way, no how is this guy a first round pick to, oh, this guy's the number one pick in the draft now. It even happened with Will Levis. So that's the famous line when they want to sort of change their perspective on a prospect. Oh, I had to go watch more film. You did? Well, no stuff, Sherlock. I think a lot of other people did too.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Malik Willis. I remember on NFL Live 3 years ago, Mina Kimes, who is a noted Seattle Seahawks fan, looked at the camera and said to John Schneider, the Seahawks GM, and this is not an exact quote, but it's pretty close. She says, "I'm begging you, please, for the love of God, draft Malik Willis." That was 3 years ago. Please, for the love of God, draft Malik Willis. And we saw what Malik Willis ultimately turned out to be. He played pretty well for himself in Green Bay, but he was never worthy of being a top pick, which is why he landed in the draft where he landed, and it didn't work out here. So I get it, especially when you have the number one pick. As we said at the top of the show, this is an opportunity for the Titans to change the trajectory of their franchise, whether it's by making the pick or trading the pick to get more picks to build up the roster. Look, we had to live through an awful football season. It was hard watching those football games. You all know it too. You love the Titans. You devoted 3 hours of your Sunday, occasionally your Thursday. I think there was one Monday. You devoted a lot of time to watching the Tennessee Titans, right? And it sucked, all right? It sucked watching the Tennessee Titans this year. But you want to be rewarded for that ineptitude by having the number one pick in the draft. And as exciting as it is, it's also kind of terrifying if you're a Titans fan, especially this year. As we said, although there seems to be a lot of momentum behind Cam Ward, it's sort of come out of nowhere, it feels like, over the past month or so, versus previous years where it was like, this guy, he's going to be the number one pick. I remember that story we referenced a few weeks ago by Albert Breer, where he talked to Brian Callahan and Mike Borgonzi, and the opening anecdote was about the Bengals meeting with Joe Burrow and the owner of the Bengals, Mike Brown, walking out of that meeting and was like, that's all I need to say.
Yeah.
That's it. He's the pick. And you knew it, right? I think what terrifies Titans fans is, although there appears to be, again, a lot of momentum building behind Cam Ward, there are also a lot of other signs that, hey, he's not going to be the number one pick that you've seen other teams make, right? You hope he's Joe Burrow. But again, the likelihood of that is low because Joe Burrow is a special player.
But isn't that what you want, Adam? You want that feeling that Brown, the owner of the Cincinnati Bengals, you want that feeling that he had when he walked out of the building, regardless of what anybody else thought. When he walked into that room with Joe Burrow, Joe Burrow walked into that room and they were in there. When they walked out, he said, that's my guy.
And who's to say that the Titans are not feeling the same way about Cam Ward?
So isn't that what you want, Titan fan base? I want to hear from you. Isn't that what you want? That your GM, Mike Borgonzi, your new GM, many say we finally got it right. I don't know if that's the case or not, but we finally got it right. Don't you want your GM, your new GM that has come from the Kansas City Chiefs, who have won more Super Bowls than you have thought about Super Bowls in the last couple of years? Wouldn't you want him to walk out of that room with Cam Ward and say, that's my guy? Wouldn't you want that? I would. because obviously you believe in what he's doing. So if I believe in him as a GM, and I think he's going to do a really good job, which I think he will, then if he walks out that room and says, Cam Ward is my guy, then all right, let's draft him. But if he walks out that room and was like, I don't know, then we got a problem.
615-737-1025. We will continue the discussion on Cam Ward. Coming up next, this week's Nashville's Best Deal is from Streetcar Taps and Garden. Patio season is here. Well, I guess except for tomorrow, it's going to be like 45 degrees tomorrow. I don't understand that. Patio season is here. Enjoy great food, cold drinks, and fresh air on Streetcar Taps and Gardens covered patio. Get half off a $30 gift card now before they are gone at thegamenashville.com/deals. D. Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Derek Mason and Adam Vingan here with you. Expected to be joined by Willie Donick later in the program. Also expected to be joined by Jonathan Hutton shortly. But we're talking Cam Ward. We're talking what the Titans do with the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. Carl is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Carl, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Man, thanks, guys. Listen, I know we're supposed to analyze this sports talk show, but I think we're kind of overanalyzing this thing. I'll explain why. None of us thought that Trevor Lawrence was going to be as mediocre as he is, but here we are. This guy was the next great thing, and he's not that. Nobody thought that Tom Brady was going to turn out to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest football player of all time. And I remember what it was like when Drew Bledsoe got hurt. Everybody thought New England's season was over with and they were going to be fighting for the number 1 draft pick. No one thought that Tom Brady was going to come in and turn to Tom Brady. And if they say they did, they're lying to you. No one thought that a guy like, and believe it or not, Peyton Manning did have a father. His name was Archie, one of my favorite players of all time. When he was playing, nobody thought that he was going to be as bad because of the situation that he was set in. No one thought that the Saints was going to continue to be that bad. And it's all, sometimes it's not the kid, it's not the player, it's the situation. If you're put in a situation where you have a garbage team, where you're going to have a world-class talent like an Archie Manning that looked like a pedestrian quarterback because he didn't have talent around him. So I say draft the kid, get him in here, and never, ever forget that the Chicago Bears picked Mitchell Trubisky, over Deshaun Watson. I mean, think about that for a minute, man. So you never know what these guys are going to turn into. And if anybody say that it's a sure thing, they're lying.
Thanks
They're
for
just lying. They don't. You just never know what's going to happen with these guys. So I say, if you're in the position to draft a quarterback at number 1, get the quarterback, and then get the offensive line around him to help the kid out.
Thank you for the call, Carl. And first of all, I just have to say, overanalyzing is what you learn how to do in Sports Talk 101 class. Overanalyzing is the bedrock.
You got to make an art of it.
Right. Overanalyzing is the bedrock of this profession. So especially when you need to get to the NFL draft, which is more than a month away at this point, I believe still. But I understand what Carl is saying. You never know. You never know. I was talking about the feeling of having that number 1 overall pick, and maybe there being some anxiety. David on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, said Marcus Mariota gave us that feeling. I can't exactly recall what that was like, because that's like right when I got to Nashville. But I mean, Carl makes a solid point that if the Titans believe in the guy, look, it's a mystery box. The situation plays a huge part of this. One texter texted in and said, we won 3 games and are the worst team in the NFL. Everyone said they don't trust the front office to make the pick. Why do we trust these coaches to coach a number 1 pick? Well, you would hope that the Titans have confidence in Brian Callahan and his staff to coach up a number 1 pick. If they didn't, they would have fired him. But they've built up the offensive line. That's where they've spent a lot of their money in free agency. On paper, this offensive line looks much improved, although the bar to clear was pretty low. But bringing in Dan Moore, shifting J.C. Latham, bringing in Kevin Zeitler, it looks like an offensive line that can protect a rookie quarterback. But again, it is a lottery, ultimately. The Titans were the worst team in the NFL. The draft isn't a lottery in the NFL. It's not a lottery in other leagues. It's a lottery. But what I mean is, you have a ticket and you hope that it cashes out and that you pick the player that will be the foundation of your franchise for a decade. But you may also pick a player who is gone sooner rather than later. You just have to hope, again, that the infrastructure of the organization, the people making the decisions, know what they're doing. And I mean, Derek, how would you rate the new Titans front office so far? How would you evaluate the job they've done in a limited amount of time?
Listen, they went out and they have not, and again, um, they've only been at the job for a couple of months here, but I think the lowering of the expectation, the seems to be attention to detail, them going out in free agency and not just, reaching for guys, even though I think there are one or two guys in there that I have a question mark on. One really, but they addressed some needs that they had. And it's not just about addressing them. They addressed them. They did something different than the last two regimes did. And this is one of the knocks on, Rand Carthon and John Robinson. They didn't go out and get injured guys. Borgonzi and his crew did not go out and get injured guys. Now, they may have overpaid for a few guys. Okay, I can live with that. But they didn't go out and get guys that had missed in the previous season, a whole season, or they're just coming back from an ACL, or they've missed 8 games in a season, something like that prior to this season. No, they went out and they got durable guys that you can depend on, guys that once you look to your left and your right, those guys more times than not are going to be there for you on Sunday, Monday, and Thursday. That's what they did. That's why, to me, I think this front office is headed in the right direction. Now, will they stay in that direction? I don't know. But at least they've addressed their holes by not just addressing them, but addressing them with guys that are dependable and durable and available. That's half the battle right there. So they did something that the other two regimes prior were not able to do. And it's easy. Don't go get injured players, especially not ones that have been injured prior to the year they're coming here. And that's what this front office up until now they've done. So I'm impressed with that.
Shoal is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Shoal, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Okay. My thing is, like, when Shedeur was number 1, when we were like number 4 or 3, because this Mel Kiper and his crazy analysts on national TV think that Shedeur was good for New York or New England or Raiders. That's what they wanted. Then they won some game. We lost. We became number 1. And then they said, no, I don't think we're going to give this guy to Tennessee Titans because they don't like us. They have hate in us. So they're propping up, which he can be a good quarterback too. Cam Ward can be a good quarterback. But they cannot explain it to me, the recent decision that, he is number 1. What have he done? The game was over. The college was over. So what tape did they watch that makes them that he is number 1 for us? They just want us not to pick the good guy. And, if I'm Tennessee Titans, I'm not listening to them because they've been wrong so many times. I'm going to pick Shedeur because I think he has a learning ability and he's patient and he knows his crap, and I will stick with him.
Thank you for the call, Shoal.
Thank you, Cho. I guess Cho wants Shedeur Sanders, and he made that evident.
If I heard that correctly, he thinks that there is a conspiracy with the NFL draft analysts trying to put Cam Ward in Tennessee because they don't want the Titans to have Shedeur Sanders. Did I get that right?
Would you sum it up that way, Nick?
Yeah, I
Kinda,
kind of got that
sorta, yeah.
synopsis a little bit.
Kind of, sort of. Hey, listen, and I love a good conspiracy theory. I do. I really do. But I don't know if I'm vibing with that one,
There might be something
Charles.
to
Yeah.
it though, because like
No, Nick.
I'm just saying agents like to push
Well,
stories.
agents, I think agents try to strategically, if they know they're not going to be the number one pick, or if they want their guy to be a number one pick, agents, they have been known to throw stories out there and see how much steam that story picks up. So I'm not gonna go that far to say as those things don't happen, but I'm not going down a whole rabbit hole as you and Chol are doing right now, Nick. So, but listen, the fact remains is this, Adam. And we talked about this, if you believe in what Mike Berganzi and Brian Callahan, along with Brinkert, and I'm just putting Brinkert there, but it's the two main guys I want to concentrate on is Borgonzi and Callahan. If you believe that these two guys can have a relationship where, there's not much delineation between how they see players, if that's what you believe, and you believe they can go out and get the job done, then you will trust what pick they choose to make, whether it's Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, or they may go another route. Listen, again, what I've seen from this front office, Borgonzi, in the last month and a half, 2 months, I've liked. Now, listen, you can win the free agent, battle. You can win the press conference battle. You can win the draft. But if you don't win during the season, it doesn't make no sense. It's all for nothing. So what he's doing now, I like it. And one reason I like it, and I discussed, and I said that earlier, is because they went out and they got available players, guys that can play, guys that are not hurt. So I think they're doing a good job in whatever decision that they make. And we said this before when Willie was on last week, whatever decision that they make, I hope that all of them are resolute in that decision. If it's Cam Ward, then everyone needs to be resolute, because this is not the 10th pick in the draft. This is not the 15th pick in the draft. This is not the 42nd pick in the draft. This is the first pick in the NFL draft, and that holds more weight than anything. So if y'all gonna pick Cam Ward, I hope everyone is on the same page in regards to handing that card in and making him a Tennessee Titan.
Dylan on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHunted.com, with a question a lot of Titans fans have. So if the Titans are drafting a quarterback, does this mean they are now tying the head coach to the quarterback? Or are they only going to give him 1 year and then get rid of him? I feel that would be bad for the quarterback as well, having two coaches in 2 years. I mean, we talked about this with Marcus Mariota. He had 3 coaches as a member of the Tennessee Titans: Ken Wisenhunt, Mike Mularkey, and Mike Vrabel. And we talked about this as well within the past couple of weeks. If given the choice, if I'm Brian Callahan and I'm given the choice, and when I say I'm given the choice, I'm not saying he's making the decision who the quarterback is. But if I'm Brian Callahan and someone said to me, here are your options, you can take a veteran quarterback who will help you win more games and therefore improve your win-loss record, which may in turn allow you to keep your job. Or you can have a rookie or young quarterback who you can prove to us that you can develop, because that was part of the reason the Titans hired Brian Callahan, and that did not work with Will Levis. So if given the choice between a veteran quarterback who could help me win, increase my record, improve my record, and a young rookie or Sam Darnold type quarterback reclamation project, give you an opportunity to show that you can turn his career around or help develop him, I would go with the latter, because that would to me would show more. But that's just me. But I mean, look, with the way that Brian Callahan, I mean, look, he wears a 3-14 record. That's his record as a head coach. So of course there are people who are doubting that he could develop a Cam Ward.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he got the job because his sort of niche was developing quarterbacks. He's seen he's been around some really good ones. So hiring him was supposed to be a slam dunk, but we all know that's truly not the case. Even when you think it's going to be a slam dunk, there's still going to be a turnover. There's still going to be a missed shot even before you get to the slam dunk. Okay. But that doesn't mean you're never going to get to it. If they go out and they draft Cam Ward, see, here it's sort of a fine line, Adam, because it's like anything. Sometimes you stay too long, and sometimes you don't give them enough time. Where does Brian Callahan fall in this? Will you give him more than enough time? Which, if the quarterback doesn't develop, then people will say, "Well, you gave him too much time." That's what Eberflus he dealt with. They ended up firing Eberflus
In
right?
Chicago,
Yeah,
yes.
that's what he dealt with both of his quarterbacks. First, it was Justin Fields, and then it was Caleb Williams. And it was like, do we keep him another year? Or do we just fire him and move on? Well, they chose to fire him and move on. Why? Because they didn't want him with a second year with Caleb Williams in that program. So in this situation, if you draft Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, for that matter, if you draft him, then I think that unless the head coach and his team shows that they are not capable of doing it with this particular guy, unless they show that right away, then I think you got to give him a chance to develop the quarterback as well as develop the team. Because the last thing you want to do is continue to put a young quarterback in a cycle of, new head coach, new OC, new head coach, new OC. You don't want to do that to a young quarterback, because even though the talent may be immense, you're still stunning his growth mentally, because now I got to learn a new playbook. Well, I got to know what he wants me to do. Now I got to know what this guy wants me to do. You're never able to grow as a player when you have several different voices in your ear each and every year. You can't grow.
615-737-1025. We've got some calls and texts to get to. Hang tight, 615-737-1025. Tune into 1025 and 1063 The Game for updates of the NCAA basketball tournament tomorrow and Friday, presented by Toyota. Fuel your adrenaline at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. Also brought to you by thenewcumberland.com, Twin Peaks, and Bet365.
All right, let's talk Lone Pronto. They continue to do the job. Look, the weather's getting nice out there. A little chilly this week, but it's going to get warm nice and soon. And I already see some people in my neighborhood, and it all seems to be happening at the same time with the 3 or 4 houses that are right behind in East Nashville. But what they're doing is they're reinvesting in their homes. They're putting up a garage. They're putting up a pool. Whatever it is that you've got on your mind for a home improvement project, if you need cash to fund that out of your home's equity, let Loan Pronto be the ones to help you, because they can do that. You need $75,000, you need $100,000. Whatever it is to finance that, they can get that money for you in less than a week at Loan Pronto. They're the leader in quickly converting home equity into cold hard cash so you can address the needs of the remodel and make your home even more valuable. The average homeowner has over $300,000 in equity, and that's your money. So you can get it through Loan Pronto. They're great to work with. I know firsthand. Call and get approved in as little as 1 day with no hard credit pull up front. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Get the money you need. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Willie Donick will join us momentarily, but we've got a lot of phones to get to. 615-737-1025. Let's start with Tim on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Tim, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey guys, I'm breaking news. This is a rumor. I know who the Titans are going to take. They're going to take Bobby Boucher, and they won't need but one player on defense. Then, well, I mean, think about it. It shocked the world.
I do love me some Waterboy. Thank you for the call, Tim.
All right, bye.
When I saw up there that Tim had a rumor about the Titans, I thought it was going to be juicy.
Oh, man, okay, let's go.
Juicy as that orange that you're
that orange is good.
Chomping down on over there. It's a weird looking orange.
It's this what is it called? Sumo orange. They are the best oranges ever. Man, they look like they are rotten or something on the outside because of the peeling.
They look like they've got a growth on them.
Yeah, but then once you tear it open, man, so good.
Let's go to Wes on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Wes, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Oh, no more Diet Coke, Adam. No more.
I know. I've since looked up what's in Diet Coke, although there are 0 calories. I don't even want to know everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. So I've got a theory, and I've been screaming it at Jared for a week and a half, 2 weeks. He doesn't want to touch it. He thinks that I'm crazy, I'm sure. But I'm going to give y'all my theory now, and I'm going to let y'all talk about it.
All right.
About 3 or 4 weeks ago, would you say that there was not as many teams that were interested in Cam Ward as there is today?
I would think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
Derek, wouldn't you say as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
I also think that the Titans are responsible for the S2 score from C.J. Stroud a couple of years ago, right?
Okay.
So I think they were trying to get C.J. Stroud to fall. This is what I think's happening. I don't think they ever liked Shedeur.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Dion may have been an issue with that. I just don't think they were willing to do that whole thing, moving into a new stadium and it be the Dion show in Nashville. I just don't think that's what they wanted. But there was a lot of hype around Cam Ward. And I don't think the Titans were really interested, but they sold everybody. Now everybody in the entire world and galaxy thinks the Titans are taking Cam Ward. They have now just made him, everybody wants Cam Ward now. And so I think the Titans have done this strategically. Think they're going to get this pick. Think they're going to trade back, let the Giants or whoever else take Cam Ward and Shedeur. Titans are going to stack a couple of picks, and they're going to go get Jackson Dart. Because in my opinion, Jackson Dart is the best quarterback prospect in this draft. I've been saying it for about 3 or 4 weeks now. And when this happens, I just want someone to give me a virtual high five from the station. That's all.
Okay, Wes, I've got you. If it happens, I will
yeah.
give you that high five. Thank you for the call, Wes. So what do you think about Wes's theory here?
Again, it's a conspiracy theory, and I love conspiracy theories. And, we don't know. Listen, I wouldn't put it past the Titans, if it ever came out, via 30 for 30, and somebody asked the question and the person looked at you side eye, but didn't answer it. A non-answer is always an answer. And they did that and they were like, just cut, laugh and cut. That tells you that what he really want to say, he can't say. But if it came out and sort of hinted at the Titans were involved, I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't. But I think in this case, I think it's a little bit different because there were more guys in that Stroud draft that were considered first round picks, if I'm not mistaken. So you're trying to maneuver yourself or put yourself in a position where you could potentially get the guy that you want. That draft, Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, Hendon Hooker, so forth and so on. So I can sort of buy the C.J. Stroud thing. I don't know if I can go that far with Cam Ward. I think if the Titans love Cam Ward, and there is a consensus across the board, then I think they draft the number 1. I don't think they move out of that spot. Because listen, I will continue to say this. The Titans need hits, and they need them bad. It's just like that singer. They had some hits back in the day, but for whatever reason, for the last 5-6 years, they hadn't been able to put together a hit. And the longer it goes, the more and more irrelevant you become. So that person needs a hit, whether they need to break up to get a hit or they need something, but they need a hit. That's the Tennessee Titans. The Titans need a hit desperately. And if you feel that Cam Ward is the guy that you can get a hit with, then you draft him. Point blank.
We bring in Willie Donick. We also bring in Donald on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Donald, thank you for waiting. Please go ahead.
Yes. Hello, gentlemen. Thank
Hello.
you for taking my call. Hello. Can
Yes,
you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you for calling.
Okay. Thank you for taking my call. I really love the show. I appreciate, the opportunity to ask a question here. I like the topics that y'all are covering. I haven't had the opportunity to really consistently listen to the show and was just wondering, what is the situation with Will Levis? Is he going to become a backup? Is he going to be traded, or what is his status at this point?
Thank you for the call, Donald. So
it's crazy that you asked.
So thank you for bringing that up. Also, hello, Willie.
Hey,
Willie's
Will.
here.
Hello, guys.
So Willie is here. There was I guess you could call it a report from Josina Anderson last night, and I've made mention many times of Josina Anderson needs one of those programs that tightens up your speech a little bit.
She's a little too wordy.
Yeah, absolutely. Evening notes, the offseason carousel continues to churn. I was just told these two quarterback names came up in recent preliminary trade inquiries or internal discussions, per a league source: Kirk Cousins and Will Levis. Atlanta has been getting calls. I heard talk of a third-round pick being potentially actionable. Who says actionable? The Titans would like to transition. What would the market be, though? Something to monitor. There are always curveballs. So that was Josina Anderson yesterday.
Who says churn?
Didn't I bring this up before, Willie, about
I feel like
potentially
Frazier
him
would
getting
use the
traded?
word churn.
Yeah,
I do
would.
think you
We'll
would.
churn some butter here in a little bit.
Yeah,
There we go.
absolutely.
Do that.
Absolutely.
Put on some colonial garb, churn some butter.
Talking your 15th century accent.
Frazier looks like he would have fun being like at Colonial Williamsburg, like being one of the people at Colonial Williamsburg who wears the colonial garb and takes people on tours. That seems like your kind of thing, Frazier.
No, not really. But I'll do it for about 20 minutes and call it a day.
Nevertheless, Will Levis, that is a question, of course. And I heard Paul Kaharski this morning on with Robbie and Rex Road, and they were talking about this. And Paul has said, Paul has left the door open for Will Levis to be a part of this team. And if I'm remembering correctly, he said, look, if Will Levis is starting for the Titans next season, it's not because they believe in Will Levis. He's a stopgap, and he's a cheap stopgap, and someone that they know. And look, sometimes the devil you know is not as good as the devil you don't, although I think the saying is the opposite. But I mean, I guess there is a possibility of Will Levis. That's the worst case scenario. But again, the question is, who would want Will Levis, and what would that return look like?
Well, the return would be nothing.
Future considerations?
It would have to be something.
Yeah. I mean, it's The Godfather Part 2 when Al Pacino, he gets the runaround from the politician from Nevada, and he says, "Here is my offer, nothing." After the guy says, "I need this, this, and this to give you the gambling license," he goes, "Here's my offer, nothing." I just don't think you're going to get anything for Will Levis in a trade. He is not tradable. But I'm open to Will Levis being on the team. I agree with Paul on that one. If it's a stopgap and he's super cheap, he's not taking up any cap space at all. So that's not a bad thing. Cousins is the one that is interesting to me, because if you're sitting there going, we're going to take it all the way up to the last minute, we're going to evaluate Cam Ward and all of the quarterbacks, and we'll do our due diligence. We're open to picking a quarterback, but if we decide not to, we don't want to roll Will Levis out there as the opening day starter. it's not going to sell tickets. I don't think that's going to be a good. You just that's a tough sell. So Kirk Cousins would be a guy that could be a better stopgap, for lack of a better term, for 1 year. The problem is I'm not giving up a 3rd-round pick for him. That's another thing. My offer would be basically nothing. But the problem is, at the end of the day, you got to have somebody, right, other than Will Levis, I think, in the mix. And I don't think I'm counting Brandon Allen with that. Do you guys agree?
Yes, and we
in
do have
the scenario if you're not let's just say you trade the pick, you get other picks, and you don't draft a quarterback. You got to have somebody other than Will Levis in the mix.
We do have the clip I was referencing from Paul Kaharski this morning on Robbie and Rex Road.
I mean, on the off chance that the Titans do roll it back with Will Levis, it's not because they think, oh, Will Levis is the magical solution to our thing, or Will Levis has earned more time. It's because they've decided that they're not going to address quarterback this year. And maybe he gets better. Maybe we can refine him somewhat. Maybe he'll be, hopefully he'll be more careful with the ball and more accurate and everything. But it's because they're going a stopgap route. It's not because they think he's their future. I mean, they hope he'd stumble into playing better, but it would be because they're drafting a quarterback in 2026 instead of 2025.
That was Paul Kaharski this morning.
Any young guy, to the fact, that has the potential, and the key word is potential, ceiling, that Will Levis has is tradable. Now, what you get for him may be a different story, but any guy that falls in that Will Levis's category, I've seen it year after year in the NFL, where you because of the potential talent that they can get out of you, they will trade a 6th-round pick for you, a 7th, and sometimes maybe even a 5th. So I think there still is, and we will know this closer and closer we get to the draft. I think there is still, he still will command something if you want it, if a team wanted him.
You think they'll get a draft pick for Will Levis?
I think they would get a draft pick for Will Levis. And Paul, I think Paul was right.
I don't think I would offer a bag of football.
I mean, but again,
for Will Levis.
Well, again, I've said this, and I believe this to be true, 100% true. It only takes one team. That's it. It doesn't take two, doesn't take three, doesn't take the whole league. It just takes one team. Now, whether that one team is stupid enough to make the decision, that's up to them. But Paul was right from this standpoint. And I'm sure he talked about a lot more, but I'm just commenting on the clip that we listened to. Will Levis is on this team. One reason, I think there's another reason too, but the reason that Paul explained, I think he is right. If Will Levis is on his team, it's because they didn't feel the need to draft, or they didn't want to address the quarterback position. So by default, he's on the roster. Here's another reason, and this is what I've consistently said about Will Levis, especially as the season ending and we're coming into the offseason, is that he's going to be a better quarterback. Now, what does that mean in the big scheme of things? I don't know. Does it mean he becomes a starter with the Titans? Probably not. But Will Levis will become a better quarterback. Just like I said, Malik Willis will become a better quarterback the next following year. He did. Now, did it parlay him, or did it end up him being a member of the Titans? No, but they got more than a bag of footballs for him when they traded him
If they
to Green Bay.
Get a 7th round for Malik Willis, then perhaps there's hope. For
So, yes, Paul's right. If he's on his team, it's because they didn't address it. But there could be a second reason, and that second reason is he showed enough that he beat out Brandon Allen, because this is a 1-year deal with Brandon Allen, and if he don't pass the smell test, they can just get rid of him this year. They can get rid of him in 2 months if they wanted to, and will not feel the repercussion from it. If Will Levis steps in here and he makes it to training camp, and he shows in training camp that he's beaten out Brandon Allen, he will be on this team.
615-737-1037. 1025. We'll continue this conversation on the other side. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game.
All right, let's tell you about Lee Company, proud sponsor of our Nashville Predators coverage, which resumes tomorrow night when they take on the Anaheim Ducks. Predators fell last night to the Blues, and so they'll try their hand with Anaheim on Thursday night, 6 o'clock. Our coverage begins here on 102.5 The Game, brought to you in part by Lee Company. And Lee Company has got the job done for you so many times. They've helped us in our household, and they have what's called the home maintenance plan, that year-round coverage that you get the annual checkups with your heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric systems. And you get discounts on repairs by being a part of the home maintenance plan. You can always call them at 615-567-1000, even if you're not a member. If you just need help with a general maintenance issue or your air conditioning unit needs to get checked, call them 615-567-1000 or go to leecompany.com. It's Lee Company, in business since 1944, proud sponsor, Nashville Predators.
D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063. The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick is proudly presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. So we had a caller, Donald, ask us about Will Levis. Matthew at Nashville texted in and said, preach, Derek. It only takes one team or one coach to think that they can fix Will Levis, so to speak. The Steelers got a 3rd and 2/7 for Kenny Pickett last year. I believe Kenny Pickett netted a 5th-round pick this time around. So who's to say that there isn't a team out there that thinks that they can be the ones to rehabilitate Will Levis? One texter says, if only we could get Will Levis's overall grade on Madden above 93, then we could probably trade him to the Jets.
Now, listen, that may end up being not the Madden, but I laugh about it, but the ratings on Madden typically matches, your play on the field at that particular
moment. And they're
moment.
Fluid. They change weekly.
They change weekly, so you can go up and down. But listen, if Will Levis goes out there and either shows that he can push Brandon Allen for that spot or ultimately wins that spot, that could be more of a reason for the Titans to then turn around and trade him, especially if they've already drafted their quarterback, whichever quarterback they may draft. If Will Levis proves that he's gotten better, that could be a plus for the Tennessee Titans. Not necessarily to keep him, but to show, because that's what everybody wants to see. Has he improved as a quarterback? And you won't be able to tell that until we start seeing him on the football field and seeing him in live games. So if he shows that he's gotten better as a quarterback, like Malik Willis did in preseason, and I'm sure the Titans took note of that, and they're taking note of that, they may not trade him until the preseason is complete. Because if he does what he's supposed to do in preseason and he's shown that growth, then you can get more than just a 7th or 6th round pick for him, potentially.
Maybe. I always like to use like romantic comedy type situations. Rom-coms. I'm a sucker for those, just like Derek is a sucker for Hallmark movies.
Exactly.
Which are also rom-coms. So
Exactly.
We're in the same boat, though I've never really been too big into Hallmark movies. Either way, there's always that situation where, the protagonist of the movie, his or her love interest, they've been hurt. Maybe they're on the wrong side of the tracks and they think to themselves, I can fix him. I can fix her. Right. And that's what somebody is looking at with Will Levis right now. Somebody is out there looking at Will Levis and they see this macho man with the mayonnaise cologne. And it just hasn't been a good time for Will Levis in the NFL. And they're thinking to themselves, I can fix him. It just takes one team.
Mm-hmm.
One team.
That's it.
And, a lot of people have connected dots with the Dallas Cowboys because Cooper Rush left the Cowboys. I think he signed with the Ravens to be Lamar Jackson's backup. And I don't think they're retaining Trey Lance. So they have an opening for a backup quarterback. Will Levis in Dallas. Can you imagine that?
Perfect.
A big arm for a big organization.
Yes. Imagine how Will Levis would go over in Dallas. That's a funny image.
But this is what I think we assessed at the end of the season is potentially he could be a decent backup quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's a bad projection for him, right? And that's something, right? That's not he doesn't belong in the league. That's just he can't be your starting quarterback. That I believe we've seen enough. That would be my assessment. I'm not willing to see if the light will go on in the coming years for that. Although it doesn't mean it's impossible. But I see a guy that could be a serviceable to decent backup in the league. He's got tools. He could go in there, be hot on a certain day or two, and win you a game or two while your quarterback's out. And that's all you really want from a backup. If your season rides on your backup quarterback, your season is probably sunk.
Absolutely.
Unless your backup is Tom Brady.
Yes.
Right. There are those rare cases, right, where Tom Brady comes out of nowhere.
Nick Foles.
Or Steve Bono. Remember the 49ers? Well, Steve Young was the backup to Joe Montana for a while. And then they had Steve Bono.
Yes, I remember.
We were like, wait a
Bono.
minute, Steve Bono?
Yeah.
He won a lot of games, but there are exceptions. But most of the time, you're looking for a quarterback that can get you by for a couple weeks.
Tommy on our text line, since this has been Conspiracy Theory Corner on D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick today, Tommy has his own conspiracy. This is not really a conspiracy. This is more of a game plan. The conspiracy is what Scholl was talking about earlier, where, again, I thought he was saying that there is...
By the way, I heard Scholl and the
Yes.
conspiracy, and that was intriguing radio. That was intriguing radio.
For those who missed it, and we're not picking on Scholl here, but for those who missed it, he suggested that the NFL Draft Analyst Industrial Complex has basically like a handshake agreement with certain teams to keep Shedeur Sanders away from the Titans by pumping up Cam Ward's value. Which, hey, I am all for a good conspiracy theory. But Tommy, this is not a conspiracy. This is more of a plan. He says trade back to 3 for next year's first. Draft Abdul Carter at 3. Trade back into the top 15 with the first you got along with next year's third, and draft Pierce. Get your quarterback next year with your own first. I feel like that meme from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with Charlie Day in front of the bulletin board with all of the strings and stuff. That's how I feel trying to read this right now.
Well, I would sign up for that in a heartbeat. That's exactly what I think they should do, unless they are committed and in belief in lockstep that Cam Ward truly is worth the first pick in the draft. And as I've been saying, and I'll continue to make this distinction, there's a difference between being a first round draft pick as a quarterback and a first pick in the draft, in my opinion. And if you don't think he's worth the first pick, then trade down. You might get him at 3. You might get him at 15, or get a quarterback with that pick. But I don't know that the Giants, I haven't heard any sniffs at that. But what you got to hope is, as the draft gets closer, maybe somebody ups what they have to this point offered for that first pick.
I'm not sure that you can, move out of that pick and say, well, I'm going to set myself up for next year's draft. Next year's draft will bring its own, problems or its own sort of guys that are, going to jump out of the box, or guys that, are predicted to go high. They're going to end up, fizzling out and not go so high. So I don't think you can make, today's decision based upon what you may get in next year's draft. Because again, it goes back to, if you feel Cam Ward is that guy, then draft him. If you don't feel that guy, if you don't feel he's that guy, then don't say, well, let's make all these moves because we'll get our guy next year. Well, you may not be in a position to get your guy next year, whatever guy you may think that guy is. So again, if you believe Cam is the guy, or Shedeur, Jackson Dart, then take him somewhere in the draft. But if you don't, then okay, you have to deal with possibly another mediocre to horrible season, and then it may put you in a position to get the number 1 pick. But then again, somebody else may be worse than you.
I'm thinking of that movie She's All That, which was a quintessential rom-com in the late 90s with Freddie Prinze Jr. and Rachel Lee Cook.
I would give a thumbs up. I give that.
That was a good movie.
I like that's a good movie.
I like that one.
I just think of that movie. She takes off the glasses and she's beautiful, and that's what's going to happen with Will Levis. They're going to remove the mayonnaise fragrance, and he's going to be a fabulous quarterback. Who knows? 6-1.
I thought you were going to go down the road of, I'll make you a bet. I can take any quarterback and make him a starter.
That
no
too.
way you can. I'll take that bet.
Absolutely.
Here's Will Levis. Make him a starter.
That is a key element of the best rom-coms. 615-737-1025. There have been some proposed rule changes in the NFL, some interesting ones. We'll discuss them coming up next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game. D. Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Coming up at the end of the hour, we're going to do a little NCAA tournament upset special game that will involve Take It to the Bank, which we do every Friday.
Yes. And by the way, when we do that, or before we do that, and I'm excited for this, but Adam, I have to pick your brain because I was late for the show today.
Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts on North Carolina's performance last night?
Every dog has its day. Every dog has its day.
They kind of took everybody that said, "Hey, North Carolina doesn't deserve to be in there." You know, and they won by what, 30?
Yeah, it wasn't even a game.
I mean, wow.
Hmm.
I mean, they said you could take your quad one stuff and stick it where.
Hey, now they've won 3 games against NCAA tournament teams this season. One of those
And
wins.
I'm with you.
Yes.
It's not about that. Even if they were to win 2 or 3 games, it doesn't change the argument that they should not have been the team that's in there. But I do think that was a pretty interesting game to watch if you're a West Virginia fan last night, because you're just sitting there bitter, going, "Come on, really?"
So I know the more exciting first 4 matchup tonight for a lot of people is Xavier and Texas, but not for this guy. American University, it's Mount St. Mary's, 5:40 p.m. tip-off.
Woohoo!
Looking forward to it. My wife has commandeered my American University sweatshirt. It's dirty, so I couldn't wear it today. But we'll see what This is my rallying cry for my American University
Doesn't that
Eagles.
sound like 3 different songs put in one?
Sounds like a high school band that's just off key.
Oh,
Adam,
man.
you hear what he says about your
I hear what he's saying.
Listen, I bleed the red, white, and blue. Love America, but American University.
I do
might need a
remember
new fights.
Funny story. I remember when I went to American, or in my senior year in high school, I told people I was going to American University. And American University, which is, of course, in Washington, D.C., it's not a well-known institution. So I remember telling one of my classmates, and he said in this mocking tone, "Oh, American University. I bet their colors are red, white, and blue, and your mascot is the Eagles." I was like, actually, yes, all of those things are correct.
Shut him down
Yes.
quick.
You're absolutely right. It is red,
Oh,
white,
my
and blue.
goodness.
Why wouldn't it be?
Yes, exactly. So we will get
Can you
to.
imagine if their colors were like green and orange?
The University of America and our colors are yellow, orange, and purple.
Yes. Well, we will get to that NCAA tournament upset special game at the end of the show. But I want to get to these new NFL rule change proposals that came out today. And let's start with the most significant one that was proposed by the Detroit Lions. According to Kevin Seifert of ESPN, the Lions have proposed a significant change to NFL playoff seeding that would largely use regular season records as the guiding principle rather than division championships. Under the proposal, the division winner with the conference's best record would still receive the number 1 overall seed. But after that, teams would be stacked by records, regardless of whether they won their divisions or received wild card berths. He notes that this approach could have a significant effect on the Lions and the highly competitive NFC North, which fielded 3 playoff teams last season, the Lions, Vikings, and Packers. The Lions received the NFC's number 1 seed, but the Vikings were seeded number 5 and the Packers were number 7. Based purely on records, the Vikings would have been the number 3 seed and the Packers would have been number 5. So this proposal would rank teams outside of the number 1 overall seed by record, regardless of whether they won the division or were a wild card team. I believe a tiebreaker would be if a division winner and a wild card team had the same record, the division winner would win the tiebreaker. I believe that is correct. But what do you guys make of that proposal by the Lions?
I, I'm not sure about this one because, then what is an incentive to win your win your division? There's no incentive to win your division if that is indeed the case. I know why they are doing it, because these divisions are getting so tightly contested. You look at the AFC North with Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and Baltimore. That's always a grind. Obviously the NFC North with Detroit was Central or the North, one of the two. It used to be the old Central. Well, with the Lions, Green Bay, and Minnesota, that gauntlet. And then you got to throw Chicago in there because you just got to feel that Chicago's going to get better this season. So you're talking about 4 teams that are going to be vying for a spot in the playoffs, and just say all 3 of them get in, all 3 of them win more than 10 games. But you will get slotted based upon not you winning your division, but you and your winning record. If you're not the number 1 overall best team in NFC or AFC, then winning your division truly means nothing, honestly, if indeed they go down this route.
So, Willie, here was, according to NFL research, what the playoffs would have looked like last year in the NFL under these rules. There wasn't much change in the AFC. Chiefs 1, Bills 2, Ravens 3, Chargers 4, Texans 5, Steelers 6, Broncos 7. I think the one change there is that the Chargers would have been ahead of the Texans, so the Chargers would have hosted the Texans in the playoffs. It was the other way around this time around. It was much different in the NFC. The Lions number 1, Eagles 2, Vikings 3, Commanders 4, Packers 5, Buccaneers 6, Rams 7.
I'm a little bit wary of when a team doesn't have it their way and they get a tough draw. We changed the rules because, for 1 year it didn't work very well. But this has happened a few times where a team that's, say, 8-8 or 8-9 wins the division and they're hosting a playoff game in the first round against a really good wild card team. So I don't think I'm against it. Do you have to change the tie-breaking format at all? Would that need to be adjusted as well if you switched? Because, for example, I know in hockey right now it's getting talked about a lot. The players strongly want, and I think the fans do as well, they want to change the format back to what it was before. When the Predators made the run to the Stanley Cup Finals, they had a straight division winner, but it was 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, etc. And it was not 2 brackets out of each division and you split the 2 wild cards the way it is now. Because what's happening now is teams are playing the same team or other in 4 or 5 straight years. It looks like the Oilers are going to play the Kings for the 4th straight time in the first round. I'm not sure that's the best way to do it. So that is a recurring problem. I think that's more of a glaring issue than the NFL one, but I'm not against what they're putting out there because I get it. If you happen to be the second best team in the conference, but you're in the same division as the best team in the conference, I don't think your seed should drop that much because of it.
But you shouldn't be automatically awarded a home game over a team that has won their division. They did what they were supposed to do and won their division. And maybe, the second place team in the AFC North wins 12 games, and the first place team in AFC South wins 11 games. Well, to me, you won your division, so you should be awarded that home game.
So let's use this as an example. And by the way, according to this, the Lions proposal also states that division winners would automatically win tiebreakers over tied teams. So let's use this as an example. Last season, the Texans hosted the Chargers in the first round of the playoffs. The Texans were 10-7. The Chargers were 11-6. The Chargers finished second in the AFC West behind the Chiefs. And of course, the Texans won the AFC South. So according to this proposal, instead of the Chargers going to Houston, the Texans would have gone to Los Angeles.
See, I'm not in agreement with that. I think there should be something to winning your division. It's not, I guess it would be your fault a little bit, but it's not your fault that you don't have a good division this season. And say the AFC West does. Well, if I win my division, I should be awarded with a home game.
It does
first-round
put
home game.
it does put the AFC South, which historically has been a weak division, I would say.
Yeah.
It puts those teams at a disadvantage because you can win that division with a slightly above 500 or even slightly underneath 500 record.
Yeah, but you can't make the rule just because one division is weak and one division is strong
Understood.
right now.
Understood.
It could flip. It will flip in the coming years. You have to be doing this because you think it's the best way and the fairest way to seed your teams. That's why you should be doing it, not just, hey, one division's top heavy, the other one's not. We should switch this.
But
It should be more of a long-term view in that. And so what I could go with it. I could go with it in this regard. If you win a weak division, it's not like you're saying you can't make the playoffs. You're allowed to be in the playoffs. You just lose a seed. And maybe you lose a first-round home game.
Well,
I could live with that.
That shouldn't be the case.
Here's the extreme example for me as a Saints fan. The famous Beastquake game with Marshawn Lynch, Seahawks against Saints in the playoffs. The Seahawks, I believe that season, won the NFC West with a 7-9 record. The Saints were 11-5 in their division, and the Saints had to go to Seattle despite having won 4 more games than the Seahawks.
And what happened?
And the Seahawks won.
They destroyed them.
Well, that
They destroyed them.
Well,
it was a blowout.
I mean, it wasn't because they decided to have the game in Seattle. It was because Seattle was just a better team that day. That's all it was.
They were that
my,
day.
My thing is,
but it helped them playing out there.
Yeah, because
As
they didn't
opposed
have
to
to
the Superdome.
travel. Listen, sports is not about fair. It's about what's earned. It truly is. It's about what's earned.
So that's where you should make your decision on what the format is.
Exactly. So
what's the most fair?
Because it's if you win your division in the NFC or AFC, that should mean something once you enter the playoffs. It shouldn't mean, well, I won my division, but that team, the Baltimore Ravens, or that team, the Miami Dolphins, are in second place in their respective divisions, but have a better record than I do. Our team does. You shouldn't be awarded over me. I earned the right to have a home game. You didn't earn that right. You didn't beat the teams you needed to beat within your conference to earn that right. It's not about being fair. If it was about being fair, put all teams in the playoffs. But it's not about being fair. It's about what is earned. This is one of these things that is truly like, you can't get this in the outside world. You just can't. What you get in the NFL is what you earn. What you get when you're talking about your records is what you earn. That's
so you value a division title that much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if it is technically,
because I know how hard it is to win. Even though the division may be down somewhat, I know how hard it is to win those division games. Hell, I know how hard it is to win games, period. So if I win my division, I should be rewarded for that because I earned the right to have a home game. You're going to start running to fan bases. They're going to keep on going back and forth on this because there's going to be a bunch of fan bases more times than not that say, well, our team won our division, but we got to go travel. The NFL doesn't want that. They don't.
I think that's a good point. The NFL has got to look at that carefully. Aren't we having the same discussion about the college football playoff?
Yeah.
This is what is in terms of a league championship as opposed to an at-large. And so I don't have a problem with it. I can see both sides of the argument. But if you want to stick to your guns, it just depends on what you value. If you value the division championship, and for that matter in college, the league championship that much, then reward those teams.
According to ESPN, the Chargers made a similar proposal in 2023, but it did not receive much support. Any NFL team can make a rule change proposal for consideration by owners. The proposals require at least 24 votes to be approved, but owners are generally more likely to approve proposals that are endorsed by the competition committee rather than individual teams. One texter says it would make the last week of the year far more interesting, more teams fighting for home playoff games.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think the NFL will always be interesting come the last weeks because of how they put together the schedules. The last Willie, 4 or 5 games of the year is typically you're playing
Yeah, they
against
flex. Yeah.
division teams, so it makes it a little bit more interesting when it comes to division superiority toward the end. So I think the NFL has done a good job at that. But I don't see if it's not broke because I'm like you, Willie. There's always this team when it don't go their way that one year, then all of a sudden we got to change everything just to appease this team. Stop trying to appease these teams.
But wouldn't it have made more sense then that the Vikings would have done this, not
Right.
the Lions, since the Lions won the game against the
Right.
Vikings?
They won the game. But I can see like the teams in that division all getting together and saying, okay, it's best Lions if you say it, if it's up, because maybe they made a deal before that game was played. Say, you know what, we shouldn't be in this position. We're the two best teams this year. We shouldn't have the loser get penalized this much. And maybe they made a deal that day. Whoever loses this game, the winner is going to propose the rule, not the loser. But we both agree. I don't know. I mean, you're right. It probably on the surface feels like it carries more weight because it's not a team that's crying sour grapes.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean,
Still,
there will always each and every year, because of what has happened in the previous year, more than likely there will always be a new rule proposed. Not to say that it will pass, but there always going to be a new rule proposed to the NFL committee, competition committee, because one team didn't like what this team did, or a penalty that happened, or this and that. So
yeah.
there's
Well, the
always a
famous
team.
one would be the interference that wasn't called.
Yes.
And then the next year they had the review for pass interference, and it was a disaster because they were just trying to make up for the one call that they blew, which they probably could have a million times again and not blow it the way they did in that Saints-Rams game.
Mm-hmm.
615-737-1025. Your thoughts on this proposal in the NFL as made by the Detroit Lions. NFL playoff seeding using regular season records as the guiding principle rather than division championships. 615-737-1025. There is a car outside that I think disagrees with this rule proposal. But do you need a bracket to fill out for the NCAA men's tournament? Head to theGameNashville.com and download or print off your bracket today. Presented by Toyota. Fuel your adrenaline at Toyota. Toyota, let's go places. Also brought to you by the New Cumberland.com, Twin Peaks, and Bet365.
All right, let's talk F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. This is a fun week for this competition that we have on our show. Take it to the bank, and it's all created because of F&M Bank. And we'll make our picks for the NCAA tournament throughout the week. Starting later today, we're going to have some fun. I'm making a good run. I had a huge week last week. Let's see if I can build off of it. But speaking of building, F&M Bank wants to build a great relationship with you when it comes to your finances. Banking made easy on purpose. It's a slogan that makes a lot of sense, and they have built a lot of tools to go with that philosophy. If you're a little younger or just somebody that wants to start putting some money aside and wants a simple way to do it, you turn your brain off, the Smart Swipe debit card. Just every time you use your debit card, you're buying coffee, you're buying lunch, you're going to the grocery store, whatever it is, they're going to round that purchase up to the nearest dollar. So every time you use that card, you're saving money. And over time, you're going to build a little savings. Simple tool that works. Tell them you heard about that Smart Swipe card at F&M Bank from us here at 1025 The Game. Go to the website, myfmbank.com. That's myfmbank.com. There are 20 locations. Find the nearest one to you. F&M Bank, we take it to the bank later today, and of course, every Friday at 1:45.
D. Mace, Finken, and Donick, 1025, 1063, The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Talking the Detroit Lions rule proposal change, or rule change proposal about NFL playoff seeding that would use regular season records as the guiding principle rather than division championships. 615-737-1025. Curtis is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Curtis, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey guys, how we doing today?
Good, thank you.
So, question: if they base it off of the regular season record, I agree that if you win the division, you have some type of leverage. But let's say there's a better team, for example, the Chargers, that are not a better team, but a team that had a better record. If you won your division, but you have a better divisional record than the team that has a better regular season record, they would not be able to bump you down a seed. I'm going to hang up and listen to what you guys think about it.
Thanks for the call, Curtis. What do you think about
that goes into some. I had somebody reach out to me that's listening to the show on, shall we call it a personal text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. This is a good point. What is the schedule inequity? You know, let's take the Titans in the AFC South and the Chargers in the AFC West. They may have different. Let's say the Titans won the division at 10-7, and the Chargers are 11-6, and they finish second. The strength of schedule could be very different for those two teams, right? It's possible that in a given year, the Titans would have had a much more difficult schedule. Let's say the division that they faced in the NFC was very tough, and the division that the Chargers played across in the NFC was very weak. So you get into that, right? So that is a good point that I hadn't thought of, which would go along to your point, Derek, in keeping it the way it is, reward the division winner regardless, because you can get into a lot of debate on is the wild card team much more worthy? The strength of schedule, because they're not playing the same schedule, right?
No,
if everybody played the same schedule, then I might feel a little differently, but that's not the case.
Yeah, it's not. So, I mean, I think this works better. And you mentioned it, Willie. I think this works better in the college space than I do, I believe, in the professional space, in the NFL. Now, if they had been doing this, what is being suggested all along, then okay, it would have been just part of the norm, and we wouldn't have known anything else. But this is the way the NFL, especially when they broke down each and every division and they made them 4 teams instead of, what was it, Willie? I think it was like 8 teams per division, somewhere around there. That's why I went back to the old AFC Central. But now that they've broken it down to 4 or 5 teams, there's something to winning your division and then being rewarded for it, as opposed to winning your division and thinking, oh man, so I still got to go to whatever, stadium that is, and they didn't even win their division. I think you will have the same sort of sentiment the Lions are having now. I think ultimately you will have with another team the next following year trying to, get a reverse on that rule.
Some of the other rules. Oh, go ahead, Willie.
Well, I was just going to reiterate the point that I probably keep coming back to, which is why I could live with it if they changed it, but I think I would stay with it, because what you don't want to do is have 1 or 2 years influence how you project over the long haul. If you feel like this has been a problem year after year after year, then that's one thing. But sometimes life isn't fair. In a given year, it may not be fair. Like you guys, Derek, when you guys went to the Super Bowl, you guys had an unbelievable year.
Yeah.
But you guys were the wild card because Jacksonville was that much better. You guys were the only team to beat Jacksonville. They were 14-2. You guys were 13-3 and had to play the wild card. You still got to the Super Bowl, but you guys weren't sitting there going, "Well, we got to play the wild card game. This isn't fair," right? Because it worked out. You went on the field and you won.
Here are 3 other rule proposals. First, it had been reported a few weeks ago that the Green Bay Packers submitted a proposal to ban the tush push that has been confirmed. The Packers rule proposal would prevent players from pushing a teammate that is, quote, lined up directly behind the snapper and receives the snap immediately at the snap. So the Packers are proposing a ban of the tush push. There is a proposal also submitted by the Lions that would eliminate the automatic first down that comes with an illegal contact or defensive holding penalty. By the way, the Lions led the league last season with 11 flags for defensive holding, and a submission from the Eagles to give both teams a guaranteed possession in overtime during the regular season, aligning with the current rules for playoff games.
Okay, the tush push. Get over it. Get over it. Get over it. I mean, if you can't stop it, you can't stop it. That's just the way it is. This is probably one of those.
I would love to modify it. I just don't know what you would do, but I don't like how it's working.
But here's what I would say to Green Bay. Well, you figure out how to run your version of a tush push, because I think there are teams out there that try to do it, but just not as good as Philadelphia. So you can't say, well, Philadelphia, they're the only people that get to do it. No, you can do it too.
Everybody can do it. You're
exactly.
Right.
So to me, stop it. Stop it. Just because you're not tall enough yet or can't touch the rim, don't take your basketball, okay? Don't try to change the rules. Don't try to lower the goal. No, leave it there, grow some, figure it out, and then you can play with the big boys. All right? Green Bay. So with that rule, I mean, I hope the NFL competition committee doesn't touch that rule. Now, the other rule you were talking about, it was the
Lions proposed to eliminate the automatic first down that comes with an illegal contact or defensive holding penalty.
That one I could be in agreement with, because how many times have we seen where it's been, 4th and 7 or 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 8, and you try to throw because nobody's open downfield, but you try to throw an underneath route for a yard, and they call holding, and all of a sudden it's automatic first down. No, it should be a 5-yard penalty. And if it's not enough for the first down, you should not be able to get a first down. Okay. Now, if it's pass interference down the field, stuff, okay, we can deal with it. Keep it at the 15 yards or keep it at the spot foul. But when it's just a holding called underneath that what is a 5-yard penalty, an automatic first down? No, make it a 5-yard penalty. And if it was 3rd and 6, now you got to get a yard. But learn how to do the tush push, and you may get it.
By the way, Willie, I do have some tush push numbers for you, courtesy of ESPN. Okay. Since 2022, the Eagles and Bills have combined for 163 tush push attempts. They have either scored a touchdown or received a first down on 87% of their tush pushes. The rest of the NFL has attempted 153 tush pushes, 71% touchdown/first down percentage.
So you're just not doing it at a higher rate than Buffalo and Philadelphia. You see, Buffalo don't want to change it.
That's a really good set of numbers. I would like to know what is the percentage of regular quarterback sneaks in general.
Mm-hmm.
Because okay, forget about your other options. Like obviously you could pass it if it's 4th and 1. Or you could just turn and give it to the running back and slam it in there. But on other quarterback sneaks that are not designated the tush push, what is the conversion rate? I would be curious.
Dale is on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Dale, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
So if I'm not mistaken, isn't it illegal for a linebacker to push a defensive lineman into the offensive line? So why can it go one way but not go the other way?
I don't think
Thanks for the call, Dale.
Thank you for the call, Dale. I don't think that is a penalty or you're not allowed. The only way you can't do that is if you're lined up for a field goal, and you cannot put a defender over the center's head, and you cannot push someone into the center when he's doing a field goal or a point after. I'm not sure that on regular defense. Yeah, I think you can do whatever you need to do outside of holding, pulling a offensive defender because they're going to call that. But if you want to push guys from behind to get leverage, you can do that. I don't think there's no rule against that. I could be wrong, Willie, but I don't think I've never heard of a rule where you couldn't push a guy from behind on defense. If you're at the line of scrimmage outside of the field goal.
Is he saying that basically if you wanted to, fight fire with fire, right? And so you're trying to create the same amount of force and leverage opposite the quarterback that the defense can't do that. They can't push.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case. I've never heard of that rule. Now, again,
I haven't heard that discussed on broadcast or anything like that. So I don't know.
Michael is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Michael, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
I appreciate it. I wanted to touch on the playoff seeding thing and see what
Sure.
you guys think about this scenario. It's kind of a fantasy scenario, but excuse me. I disagree with the division winners getting the number one seed, the top seeds, because there are 4 and there's only 7 participants going to make the playoffs in each conference. How would you guys feel about a realignment where you have 2 divisions of 8? And then those 2 division winners being 1 and 2. I think that would separate the pack and kind of eliminate the argument. What do you guys think?
Thanks for the call, Michael. What do you guys think
you would
about
still
that?
have to. It's an interesting thought, but you would still have to then come up with how you schedule. So if you did that, how would you schedule? You play everybody twice, and then what do you do for the other games?
So explain that again. He
wants to create 2 divisions with 8 teams.
Okay.
Instead of 4 times 4.
Well, it was. You remember, Willie, it was what? 3 divisions.
It was 3 times 5.
It was 3
before.
divisions. And then they broke them down into 4 divisions, I think now.
It's 4 times 4. Yeah.
4. So if they want to go back to, you can't go back to 2 because it'll be 16, well, not 16, it'll be 8 and 8. I guess you can if you wanted to.
So if you did that and you played 14 conference games, so how would you do the other 3 games? You wouldn't play anybody in the NFC?
I think you would have to go to the AFC and vice versa.
So you wouldn't play. You'd only play 3 games like that.
But you wouldn't have. I don't like that. I'm not gonna say I don't. It would take some getting used to, really, and I'm not talking about from the fan standpoint. I'm talking about from a player standpoint, and coaches and how you game plan, because it's an advantage for all teams when I can, game plan for you twice a year, where after the first go around, okay, I know what I need to change because we may run into this team again during the AFC playoffs. So within my own division, so I'm playing you twice, I can adjust. And what if we got to play you a third time? So I think it's good having to play a team twice, within the year, within your division. Playing them once, I think it takes away some of that. Oh, you won this time? Oh, the rematch is going to be even better. You see what I'm saying? Like, you won't get that Baltimore and Pittsburgh 2 times a year. So stuff like that. So just keep it the way it is.
615-737-1025. We will continue to take your thoughts on that. But coming up next, with the NCAA tournament starting for real tomorrow with the round of 64, we are going to have a little fun in addition to our Take It to the Bank, which we normally do on Fridays. And I will explain the rules. Coming up next, Willie Dondick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Oh, that's the good stuff. D-Mace, Fingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. D-Mace, Fingan, and Donick, proudly presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Stillman and Company coming up next right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. But before we get there, we thought with the NCAA tournament kicking off really tomorrow, although there are important games tonight, we are going to have an additional bet for our weekly Take It to the Bank. So this is what we're going to do. David James has joined us for this segment. Each of us is going to pick a 13, 14, 15, or 16 seed to win in the first round. By the way, I was amazed when I saw this, guys. According to ESPN, at least one top 4 seed has lost in the first round in 15 of the past 16 tournaments. Last year, 2 top 4 seeds were knocked out, Kentucky by Oakland and Auburn by Yale. So this is what we're going to do.
The guy hit the 10 threes.
Yes.
For
we referenced him at the top of the show.
Oakland, yeah.
Willie, do you remember this name? This was the name I pulled out of my hat. Ali Faroukmanesh. Do you remember Ali Faroukmanesh?
No.
Oh, he played for Northern Iowa in 2010, helped Northern Iowa defeat Kansas. Anyway, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to pick a 13, 14, 15, or 16 seed to win in the first round. We'll allow David James, who is the commissioner of Take It to the Bank, to determine how many points we get for this choice. And I've put our names into a random list generator. And David James, indeed, has the first selection. So, David, you have your pick.
Hey now.
David,
I'll take points away from you.
You have your pick of any 13, 14, 15, or 16 seed to win on either Thursday or Friday. Which team were you picking?
Listen, there's so many options that I have, and I'm looking at my bracket right now. And my favorite, there's a few that I like a little bit more than the other, but I'm going local.
Okay.
Let's go Lipscomb, baby.
Okay. Right.
Go Bison.
David James, 14th seeded Lipscomb, taking on Iowa State. That game, I believe, is Friday at 12:30. Lipscomb and Iowa State. So David is taking Lipscomb. Willie, you are next on the list. Outside of Lipscomb, which team will you be taking?
I'll take a former local tie, and I will go out to the West Region.
Grand Canyon,
Bryce Drew. Let's go. Out in Climate Pledge Arena.
In Seattle, Washington.
By the way.
That was my second choice. That was a good one.
It used to be called the Key Arena, but it's now been rebuilt. It's built into the ground, so it's a really cool venue. So I'm going to go with Grand Canyon. They are a 10.5-point dog. But remember, this is one where you got to win outright.
This is straight up. This is straight up.
Straight up. I'm going with the 13 seed Grand Canyon.
So you are taking Grand Canyon, coached by former Vanderbilt coach Bryce Drew, 13 seed against the Crab 5 of Maryland.
Crab 5.
The Crab 5.
They're good, by the way. It's not that I have anything against the Crab 5. I got a feeling Bryce Drew in March. That's a good team. He's got a lot of money in that team. They have more money than a lot of mid-majors.
So you are taking Grand Canyon, whose nickname I don't even know off the top of my head. You are taking Grand Canyon against Maryland. All right.
Grand Canyon is the Lopes.
The Lopes. I like it.
Lopes.
I am going to take
not Davy Lopes, who used to play second base for the Dodgers when I was growing up a lot, but the Lopes.
I guess
Antelopes?
Yes, I guess Antelopes. I am going to take what I think is the most popular upset. Give me High Point against Purdue.
Ooh.
Give me
Lindsey
High Point.
Rowley will be fired up about that.
Yes.
Lindsey Rowley is a proud alum of I think they're the Panthers.
They are the High Point Panthers. Give me the High Point Panthers against Purdue. Purdue has been in this situation before.
Let's hope they're not in a low point.
Right. They are. Hopefully High Point does not have a low point. Give me High Point against Purdue. Purdue not playing well entering the NCAA tournament. They have been on the wrong side of these massive upsets before, I should say. So give me High Point against Purdue. Derek, that leaves it to you, my friend.
Well, I am going with, I just had it because, here we go. I am going with the Bulldogs
of Yale. Who did this last year?
Yes.
Wow.
Against
2
Auburn.
years in a row.
Yes. So I'm taking them over the number 4 seeded Aggies of Texas A&M.
All right.
Let's go Bulldogs.
So nobody took Akron, the Zips against Arizona, or the Troy Trojans against Kentucky, although Kentucky did lose in this fashion last year.
Can you imagine the freak out if Kentucky loses again in the first round? Oh no.
Someone better check on Carnew if that does happen.
Nobody took Montana
No.
against Wisconsin, or Alabama State against Auburn, or Wofford against Tennessee. So
Hey, listen, Yale lost a close game to Minnesota. 3-point game to Minnesota. Now,
I
I'm not
watched
saying-
Yale play over the weekend. They're good. They do not look like and this is the case with all the little guys now, right? They don't look like they used to. I think there's just much more experience. There's much more size. It's just spread out a lot more because of NIL and the transfer rule. I think it does level the playing field a little bit.
So to recap, David Janes is taking Lipscomb against Iowa State. Willie is taking Grand Canyon against the Crab Five of Maryland. I am taking High Point against Purdue, and Derek is taking Yale against Texas A&M. But of course, although remember, tomorrow, by the way, come join us at Boomba's in Murfreesboro. We will be there from 9 to 6. Derek and I will be there representing DVD. Willie Donick will be back at Bridgestone Arena with the Predators playing the Anaheim Ducks. But we will all be out at the Spring Hill location of Boomba's on Friday. So come enjoy some basketball.
And I will be anchoring down at that point.
Yes.
There will be an anchor down factor. But here's one for you, Adam. I just looked at the lines. And one of the reasons I was looking at it was there used to be a time that when the seeds would come out and there was a 12 versus a 5 or an 11 versus 6, from time to time, you would see an odd time that the 12 seed would actually be favored. I feel like with the way that they've seeded this year, I haven't seen that this year. I think the odds makers, I'm not sure if the committee maybe consulted the odds makers and didn't do that anymore, because it might have been a little embarrassing for a committee to say the 12 seed's favored over the 5 seed, but that's not the case this year. However, North Carolina is a 1.5 point favorite over Ole Miss tomorrow. I'm surprised to see that.
Interesting in a 6 versus 11 matchup. But of course, the matchup we all care about tonight, 5:40 p.m., Mount St. Mary's, American University. Go Eagles.
Let's go Eagles.
Let's go Eagles.
Go America.
Let's go America.
America.
Stillman and Company coming up next, 102.5, 106.3. The Game.
Be love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful Wednesday. Peace.